and welcome to this episode of the 5G Factor. I'm Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst and Chief Evangelist here at Futurum Research, and I'm joined today by my colleague and fellow analyst, Ron Westfall. We are going to have a conversation about 5G, the IoT, and the 5G ecosystem as a whole. Ron, welcome. Always great to kick off these conversations.
Well, thank you, Shelley. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm definitely looking forward to diving into today's hot topics.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to kick off the show talking about news on the street that T-Mobile is rumored to be exploring partnering with Samsung for 5G equipment. This wouldn't be a total surprise, but it might well upend some progress that Nokia has made on this front. So it definitely caught my eye, and I think it's worth chatting about a little bit. So Samsung is not really a stranger to T-Mobile. Of course, before T-Mobile's purchase of Sprint, Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung all played roles in building out Sprint's network across the United States. That network has been since dismantled. But Samsung is not really a new player here. Samsung has been making some inroads in the network build-out space, recently providing Dish with 24-ish thousand plus 5G radios that Samsung is installing. They're also working with Comcast for its 3.5 gigahertz CBRS and 600 megahertz network build out. Samsung is also selling Open RAN technology to Dish Network, and you know, as we see the Open RAN team at T-Mobile start to mature, it makes sense that this might be of interest. So I thought it was interesting. You know, T-Mobile has historically had very close relationships with Nordic vendors, Ericsson and Nokia. Today, T-Mobile's 5G deployment has basically been split about 50-50 between Nokia and Ericsson. And of course, as I said earlier, this connection to Samsung, I think, comes by way of the relationship with Sprint, which T-Mobile acquired in 2020. Why is this change happening? You know, I mean, there's probably a few reasons. T-Mobile's leadership team is changing a bit. Network lead Neville Ray is leaving or has left, and other key executives have joined the team, including network equipment executive Mike Simpson. Mike has spent time with Nokia and Clearwire before Clearwire was subsumed by Sprint. So bottom line, I thought this was interesting news. I think there is certainly room in this space for Samsung to slide in, and it'll be interesting to watch this play out and see whether Samsung does in fact get a piece of T-Mobile's 5G network build out.
I love rumors. You know, I think this is a sound strategy by T-Mobile.
I agree.
For example, it's, you know, common sense supply chain supplier diversification.
Absolutely.
And this is going to keep, Nokia and Ericsson, the incumbents, you know, a little more on their feet,
On their
so they
toes. Right?
can't take T-Mobile for granted. And what I think is interesting, I think you did a great job, Shelley, pointing out where Samsung has already gained traction.
Yeah.
Certainly, Dish Network leaps to mind, and also the $6.6 billion deal with Verizon
Right.
that was signed 3 years back. And so this is showing that Samsung is very shrewd about how it is playing in the 5G ecosystem, because
Right.
they're a chip supplier. They're also a handset supplier, a mobile device supplier. So on the infrastructure side, they have, I think, a great deal of intelligence and expertise that can be shared in making an end-to-end 5G network work all the better. And so I think these are all factors, driving T-Mobile's decision making and potential to make Samsung a part of this strategic mix.
Well, and I think that, I mean, the reality of it is Nokia and Ericsson are terrific vendor partners. And, as I said, this isn't, I feel like there's plenty of room for Samsung and maybe even other vendors to play in this space. And as you said, I mean, we've learned a lot about supply chain over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, right? And having a really robust supply chain with a diversity of vendors is just good business sense. So it'll be interesting to watch and see what happens. I know I know that T-Mobile sent news of an announcement here taking place tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what that's about. May or may not be about this, but it'll be interesting. So with that, I want to slide over. We started talking about Nokia. So I want to slide over and talk now about Nokia's 5G market position. And, we were at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona together, Ron, which was at the end of February, beginning of March. And, news of the event was Nokia's new brand identity. And along with that refreshed and completely redone brand identity, Nokia has brought to market a refreshed brand strategy. And this is intended to, reflect where the company is positioning themselves. And today, that positioning is as a B2B technology innovation leader pioneering the future where networks meet cloud. Nokia laid out a three-phased company strategy that was designed to deliver sustainable, profitable growth. They established some key pillars and some key enablers underpinning those pillars. So I know that you spent a little bit of time studying this, Ron. So talk with us a little bit, if you would, about what this refreshed brand strategy on the part of Nokia means.
Oh, you bet, Shelley. I think when it comes to the Mobile World Congress event, Nokia stole the show in some key regards. They
They
had a
did.
tremendous booth. It was Oz-like, a miasmatic effect. And yeah, the new logo and the color schemes and so forth. It was all very imaginative. And I think it's simply reinforcing what President and CEO Pekka Lundmark outlined at the show. And that is, the six pillars that Nokia is using to drive their strategy throughout the mobile ecosystem. And I'll briefly state them and drill down on a couple of the key ones. One, they're going to commit to the service provider market, which is a no-brainer, as that's where the vast majority of their revenues are. And in addition to that, they're looking to expand their presence in the enterprise market. And that, I think, is what opened up some eyes in terms of, okay, Nokia is going to do something different. And that makes sense. They have a strong position in, say, private networks, with 5G private networks definitely looking to expand significantly. And so they're looking to expand from an 8% revenue stream from the enterprise market to 10% plus. They're talking about 20% eventually, a couple of years out plus. So this is a big move, for Nokia and the industry. Also, they're looking to maximize their portfolio. That, I think, is straightforward. That is, they're only going to play in spaces where they can really assert leadership, kind of emulating Cisco in that regard. Also, they're looking to expand their IP and R&D capabilities for Nokia technologies. So it's not just about mobile devices, but monetizing in other technology areas, and also driving more of as a service capabilities. I think we're seeing that with their SaaS model being more integral to their overall offerings. And the sixth pillar, which is develop ESG into a competitive advantage and thus become the trusted provider of choice in the industry. And I think this is very smart because it's not just about Nokia upholding its own, ESG goals, but also being a strategic partner in ensuring that their customers meet their ESG goals, but also being really a motivator, a driver across the entire telecommunications industry. And here are some creative ways to really make sustainability a competitive advantage, not just something that you need to fulfill, but also in terms of demonstrating that the telecommunications industry itself is going to make a huge difference in terms of society as a whole, in terms of ensuring that as a planet that we avoid some climate pitfalls in the future that are looming. And so I think this is all inspirational. I think definitely heightens Nokia's marketing in this area, but also I think it allows people to factor in Nokia not just in terms of mobile technology, but also in terms of meeting these strategic ESG and sustainability goals. And that, as we see, is going to become increasingly vital and essential.
Yeah, absolutely. And really impressive, I think. I mean, I certainly walked away from my interactions with Nokia at Mobile World Congress, and really their keynotes and all of the information they shared in this strategy and focus. I mean, it's the right thing at the right time. It makes a ton of sense. And when it comes to all things sustainability, I mean, being able to leverage that as a competitive advantage is something that's really important. And I think that a lot of organizations are looking to be able to do that, and being able to provide leadership, guidance, and assistance with that is really a key part of Nokia's offering.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to move on and talk about something else coming out of Mobile World Congress, and that was news about Vodafone and its little 5G network surprise in Raspberry Pi. Vodafone unveiled a prototype 5G network on Raspberry Pi, which is a credit card-sized little PC with a super small but advanced silicon chipset. This is designed really, I think, to help small businesses and households, people who want extended 5G coverage and they want to be able to increase their capacity, but they need to be able to do it in a way that's both affordable and secure. So talk a little bit more about that, Ron. I know you wrote about it for the Futurum website, so take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, this is another development at Mobile World Congress that jumped out. I mean, there are a lot
Yeah,
of great announcements, lots of partnerships and new products, and this one I think is very innovative and creative. At least it has the potential to do so. I think
yeah,
Shelley, you hit it right on that. This is based on Raspberry Pi, and so this is very right sized, if you will,
yeah,
for fueling broader 5G deployments.
yeah,
And so yeah, the Raspberry Pi is they're using it to make 5G based mobile private networks more accessible, specifically to the 22 million plus small and medium sized enterprises across Europe. So this coming out is very European centric, but also I think it can serve as a template for the rest of the industry if this really takes off. And
right,
so, to your point, yeah, the Raspberry Pi uses a 5G compatible and embeddable software defined radio circuit board that's made by UK based specialist Line Microsystems. So, I think this is, again, taking best of breed, combining two technologies, and coming up with something that can, I think, be a difference maker. And so, what is actually, I think, also important to note here is that Vodafone is now looking and shopping around to have a partner step up and be willing to help them build this en masse. And I think this is I guess the one caveat is we're looking forward in this year, and we'll certainly monitoring this, and Vodafone's success in recruiting these partners who can make this design and thus push it out to the mass market. Because all Raspberry Pi products come in below $100. They usually average
right,
$35, and to have a 5G mobile network that you can install, plug and play into your small business or small enterprise setting or even your home, and it comes in below $100, and it's the size of basically a Wi-Fi router. Well,
right,
gee whiz, that I think would be very compelling and
right.
definitely accelerate, I think, mass uptake of 5G and make it all the more accessible and all the more able to do things like close the digital divide.
Right. Well, I want that, and you want that. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, in today's hybrid workforce, right? I mean, having a remote workforce is not new for us, as you know. Our team has been virtual since our company's inception, so we're kind of pros at this. But the reality of it is, we want fast networks, we want 5G access, we want all of these things. So, and when it can happen for, you're saying under $100, well, $35 is significantly under $100. I'm sure there are probably some other costs in there, but I think it's super exciting. And like I said, I think you'd be hard pressed to find people who don't want this, right?
Yeah, what's not to like? Let's hope that it really does, take off. And so, yeah, we'll certainly do our part in terms
Yeah,
of monitoring it and
yeah.
providing our perspective on how Vodafone can find partners in this key regard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Ron, you touched on Nokia's focus on sustainability. And so I am going to now transition and talk a little bit about a market insight report that we developed and published here really at the end of February. And it is on 5G sustainability. And in this report, we looked at key considerations and market shapers driving 5G sustainability programs and initiatives. And we looked also at the top communication services providers, 5G market shapers that were driving sustainability, what the top criteria was on this front, some of the things that we see as top sustainability priorities and strategies. And then we also took a look at some companies that we identified as being the top 5G CSP, having the top 5G communication services providers sustainability programs in market today. So I'm not going to take you through the report in its entirety. Of course, we're going to link it in the show notes. And of course, we hope you'll be interested enough that you'll tap that link and download it. What I just wanted to touch on, though, is that, some of the key things that we explored were the market shapers driving 5G sustainability programs and initiatives, and that those things including, addressing the very real need for energy management, things like energy and cost savings that can come as a result of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and analytics. We touched on, of course, network slicing efficiencies, which are a key part of things that customers are demanding these days. We touched on the importance of 5G standalone networks. And of course, last but never least, we talked about the key role that cloud plays in handling mobile data workloads and beyond. So those are sort of the top market shapers there that we covered in the report. We also touched on what we see as the top 5G sustainability criteria that communication services providers and 5G network decision makers are focusing on. These are things that, if you're playing in this space, you probably want to be aware of. And so what we identified there as these top sustainability criteria were things like carbon emissions, energy efficiency, no surprises here, clean energy adoption, establishing an organized wide sustainability plan, and also being able to meet 5G reporting requirements. So we dove into each one of those and kind of explored the role that they play overall. We also talked about what we see CSPs doing to meet these criteria. And then we talked a little bit more about, we identified 5 companies that we see as having the foremost 5G CSP sustainability programs. And those are kind of how did we identify them? Like I can't remember the term that we used in the report, but it was something like, the shining stars that we identified.
The Ring of Honor. Yes, the Ring of Honor.
The Ring of Honor. The Ring of Honor. And so I will tell you that the companies that we identified in this Ring of Honor at this moment in time were Vodafone, T-Mobile, Orange, Telefonica, and SK Telecom. And in our report, we explain why we identified these companies as being worthy of recognition in our Ring of Honor. And again, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the report, because that is something we hope that you'll be inspired by this little introduction and want to download it and read it. Ron, do you have anything to add without giving away the goods?
Well, yeah, strike that fine balance. And Shelly, you did a great job of covering it. The only thing I will add is the fact that we're seeing, the CSPs that made our Ring of Honor doing a better job of prioritizing stakeholder input, for example. Right. And I think this is going to be increasingly vital as the CSPs understand that they have to work with the entire value chain to really, advance things like fulfilling their ESG goals, but also, very importantly, scope 1 through 3 GSG reductions, greenhouse gas reductions, right, and aligning that with, some hard scientific objectives. So this is not a greenwashing exercise. That's why we selected these particular CSPs,
Right.
because they really provided the most information at this point in time, we believe. And as a result, we see them not only adhering to these principles, but executing on sustainable supply chains.
Right.
Part of that scope 1 through 3 criteria, and also sustainable energy management and so forth. So this is definitely an area that is going to become increasingly important. I think when we were at Mobile World Congress, the key theme in all of our conversations was sustainability, sustainability,
Absolutely.
sustainability.
100%.
And don't get me wrong, there are other important things like AI and 5G monetization and cloud integration and so forth. They're all important, but this definitely was at the top of the list from our perspective, and that's why we have issued the report, and definitely welcome input and feedback, practice what we're preaching, and look forward to getting more information on this hot topic throughout the course of this year.
Well, and I'll say that, for vendors who are doing exciting things in the sustainability space, we can't cover what we don't know about. So if you're doing something that is significant, you want us to be aware of it, you know where to find us. We'd love to hear what you are doing as it relates to sustainability and delivering on ESG initiatives. And so we will always make time for those conversations, right, Ron?
Right on, right on. The Ring of Honor could ultimately emulate the Oscars, going from 5 Best Picture nominees to 10 Best Picture nominees. But they did
Yeah.
that after they realized they got a lot more input, and this is something
Yeah.
that is feasible.
So the Ring of Honor could include you. Just keep us in the know. All right. Well, with that, Ron, I think we're going to wrap this episode of the 5G Factor. To our viewing audience, to our listening audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Ron, thank you for making time to spend with me this afternoon. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the 5G Factor. So tune in then.